Welcome to the Trust Factor Radio, bringing you interviews and insights to unlock the power of the subconscious mind to create authority, credibility, and trust. With your host, the Authority Architect and best-selling author, Neil Howe.
Hello, welcome to the show. This is your host, Neil Howe, and today my guest is Bryan Newbrite, better known as Punky to some of the followers in the crypto world, and we're here to talk about cryptocurrency and more so Axion, which Bryan is involved with. Now, this is the Trust Factor Radio. There are a lot of questions that people have about cryptocurrency. So we're going to get Bryan to talk about some of these things. But Axion basically is an ethical, community-driven cryptocurrency that rewards long-term investing with high-yield interest rates on weekly dividends. So that is something really interesting that we're going to get into. But first of all, Bryan, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Well, give us a little bit of your background. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved in Axion.
Sure. Yeah. My career up till now, my training is actually in aerospace engineering. And so I spent the last 14 years as an aerospace engineer. And I've kind of bounced around. Really, the last 7 of those, I've been leading different departments for 3D printing. And so most of my background is all in 3D printing and aerospace engineering with a very specific focus on advanced mathematics. The way I got into the cryptocurrency I was with a friend, and we decided to invest in some crypto just to kind of get a feel for what it is. The rest gets to be a little bit of a history. I bought into Axion last year. And then as we dug into the token, I started doing what I do best, which is the math, kind of digging into the economics and finance side. One of my side hobbies is finance as well. And as I dug into it, what we started to see is that we have a real opportunity to create a new kind of cryptocurrency, something that can kind of work for everybody that's involved. Generally, if you look at what cryptocurrency is, you end up having it's really a game of sharks and minnows, right? You have these very large bull runs and these very large bear markets. And then what we started to see with the Axion tokenomics, as well as the community, that we could smooth some of that road out and make it so that humans could stake and then really have a little more confidence that if they stake, which is essentially to time lock your cryptocurrency, that you'd still be able to make profits long term, and in fact higher profits long term through those weekly dividends.
So, from a 30,000-foot view, which is, where I'm coming at it from the cryptocurrency world, I looked at Bitcoin probably, I don't know, 10 years ago anyway, when it was, under $500 and thought, I should probably get in and do something, but I wasn't sure, I wasn't sure about what was going on. So if you can give just a brief overview of what cryptocurrency is and why people seem to be flocking to it right now.
Yeah. Just think about with the digital age, we now have computers, right? And we now can control things in bits and bytes that we can control forever and always. If you think about traditional fiat currency, which is what the crypto community calls everything else that's not digital currency, you have, once the dollars are printed, once the euros are printed, they go out and exist, and you do some estimation about how long they exist. You have some estimation about how much exists, but really it's kind of a transition from the fiat world into the digital world. And so what cryptocurrency really is a decentralized version of the same currency you're used to. Right? Every currency has its own value, specifically based on what everybody believes its value to be. And that's the same with the dollar, with the euro. It's the same with cryptocurrency. Now, cryptocurrency is very new. You're looking at something it's just in the 2000s. This is a very, very new type of currency. And basically what it is it allows you to digitally track every single portion of the currency as it makes its way through the chain. And so there's a limited supply built into these tokens. And then over time, you're able to follow each individual piece and then digitally guarantee that each individual piece is only spent one time.
Okay, so there's a few moving parts there. I know that with the stimulus checks that have been going out and all these relief funds, the US as well as countries around the world have just been printing money nonstop and handing it out. What does that do to the value of that currency, and what does it mean to have a cryptocurrency where maybe that kind of thing can't happen?
Yeah, and that's the real innovation of Axion, and we'll definitely talk about that. Right now, if you're going to produce money, you assume that some of that money is going to get, dollar bills will waste and fall apart. But every single time you're printing new money, they're obviously printing it at a faster rate than it's being destroyed, which causes inflation, right? And inflation basically means that every single time they print a new dollar, the total pool of dollars goes up, which means your dollar's worth a little less. Right. And so as you print stimulus, as you try to distribute money to the economy, you end up devaluing all of the money that already exists. And by the way, this also exists in the cryptocurrency space. In the cryptocurrency space, people have these long-term CD lock tokens. And what they're doing is they're paying you interest. Right. There's a few ways to pay you interest. You can either pay someone interest based on minting more tokens over time. A lot of CD tokens do this. You can also pay interest by charging fees for the use of the platform, and then those fees get distributed to holders. Where Axion is a little bit different is we've kind of blended these the use of both inflationary printing, but also deflationary, what's called burning. And so what we've actually done is we've got a very delicate or very balanced ecosystem that allows us to continue to print to mint is the word Axion. Those are sold out in auctions every single week. Those auctions then are distributed, in this case, in wrapped Bitcoin or in other currencies, back to those who have staked it. But the people who are staking it have a long-term burning function. And so this is what makes Axion specifically unique, and it's only possible because it's a cryptocurrency. It allows us to both mint over time, and as inflation rises, and as people are getting the distributed dividends from having staked their coins, they can then sell them off in the future and burn those coins. And so you end up having this churn where you're constantly minting and burning tokens so that you can continue to stimulate the market without having to have runaway out of control inflation. So it's really a unique thing for the world. This is why people get excited about cryptocurrency. You would never be able to do this with a piece of paper money or a piece of metal money. You'd never be able to control it. But since you can control this through a kind of a dynamic market on the cryptocurrency world, controlling each one of those pieces means that really you can start producing and minting more without having to have the long-term rampant runaway inflation that's a problem for every currency today.
Right. So a couple of things, producing and minting more. I know we talk a lot about mining in the crypto world. What exactly does that involve, and how does that create value in the currency?
Yeah, so if you want to talk about mining, so mining things on like Ethereum or Bitcoin, basically what it is you're using your computer, and it's more than just a laptop, to do the complex mathematical calculations that underpin cryptocurrency. That's what makes it secure, and that's what makes it exist forever. If you were to look at the underlying values of what each little bit and byte is, they're very long chains of numbers. And so what mining is when you set up a cryptocurrency, you have these miners or these large banks of computers that are essentially producing these calculations and steadily producing more tiny parts of each new coin, right? And so this is what just hardware mining is for things like Bitcoin. Cardano has the same thing. A lot of the cryptocurrencies have that. What we're doing in Axion is really, I would call it the equivalent of software mining, right? What we're doing is we're minting the tokens from Axion itself. We mint those tokens, we produce them for the market. When they're sold, that money is then used to purchase another currency, in this case, Bitcoin. And then that Bitcoin is distributed to the people who have staked long-term. And then the way our software mining really works is the longer you stake, we call it longer pays better. And so the longer you stake, the more shares you get of the overall pot of tokens that gets purchased every single week.
Okay, so there's a lot of people that have dived into Bitcoin, Ethereum, and like you said, there's been some massive swings in the market. It's been going up recently, taking a little dip but heading back up again. What what is Axion doing differently than those kind of big players that are out there right now, that like the Bitcoin and Ethereum?
Yeah. So if you look at people like a Bitcoin, there's a set amount of Bitcoin that's ever going to exist. And so Bitcoin is really considered a store of wealth, right? It's not going to have that runaway inflation. It's basically serves as a store of wealth commodity market. So that, it's basically how people value the Bitcoin is what you get those very wild swings. Other tokens that are on the Ethereum network. So our token is currently on the Ethereum network. Those tokens are, have different options for how they distribute interest, right? The way Axion does things a little bit differently, and then what we feel helps us a lot more prepared to take advantage of bull markets and still be able to withstand bear markets, is because our token currently is probably the first one in the world that we have 21+% of our supply staked out for 15.2 years. And so if you look at how the cryptocurrency world works, usually you see these like 4-year cycles where, if you look at Bitcoin, early last year, it was around $3,000. And today it's at $46,000. It got up as high as 57, right? And so, I think people will talk about Bitcoin as 50 cent and $1 buys originally. And so obviously the price point's gone way up for things like Bitcoin. And then again, it cycles through and goes back down. The reason for that is it's all available to be purchased on the market at any given time. Right. What Axion does differently is we've built a series of mechanisms that encourage people financially to stake longer. And as they stake longer, it stabilizes our supply. And so the more people that engage in our token, then the more stable our token becomes. At the same time, we're minting more. Right. And so as people continue to engage in the token, over time, it becomes more and more costly to buy tokens that you can then produce shares with. And then those shares over time will stack up with inflation. And then once, sometime in that 2 to 5 year range, that level is going to peter off to just a nice flat inflationary rate. And so what we're able to do is build a very balanced ecosystem that allows people to continue to buy newly minted coins, but also due to their long-term staking habits that we've already proven that within our own community, it's still viable to purchase no matter where. That's one of the big things with cryptocurrency is people talk about when is it going to go to the moon? When is it going to spike? When are we going to hit an all-time high? Be wary of those words, because when something hits an all-time high and you buy it at the all-time high, you only have ever lost money, right? What makes Axion different is that even if you buy at the all-time high and we just stay at that all-time high or near it, over time, because you have a 15-year pool of dividends and you have the constant minting, distribution, and restaking of tokens, it doesn't matter where you buy the token. You'll continue to profit every single week as we mint.
Well, that certainly sounds good. I know this is the Trust Factor Radio. People need to trust in the vehicle that they put their money in, and the longer they can put their money in something, the bigger return generally that you get from it. I know there's a 5-5-5-5 stake. Explain what that is to me.
Yeah, so it's based on just the number of days that it's staked, and it's a bit of a legacy name. Right now we call it max shares. And basically what it is, think of it as a traditional bank CD. And so if you're going to put your money in a bank CD, you have the option of 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, 3 years. With a bank CD, though, at the end of that time period, that's when you get all of your money, right? The longer you lock it up, the higher the interest rate you get, but you have to wait till the end with severe punishments on the way up. Axion is similar, but actually has a much easier way to make funding the entire time. And so for us, you can stake anywhere from 1 to 5,555 days. We call that max shares. And any day that the further out you stake, the more shares you get. And so it's the same in bank CDs where you get a higher interest rate, except that our interest rate is a set level at 8% plus these dividends. And so if you were to stake for max shares, you end up getting somewhere between 3 to 3.5 times the shares as if you were staking for 180 days. And instead of having to wait all 5,555 days, I mean, obviously that's an eternity in crypto. Every single time we run an auction, we run 2 of those per week. Each time the contents of that auction are distributed to the stakers. And so you don't have to wait for the 15 years. You don't even have to wait for the 3 days. You wait for every single auction. And as that auction comes in, those dividends are put directly into your account and you can withdraw them at will.
Okay, get a little bit more in depth for me with the auction. I didn't quite understand that.
Sure.
What exactly are you auctioning, and what can we take out from it?
So what we're doing is right now we start off like all cryptos with a small token supply. Small in the crypto universe is about 250 billion. With that small token supply, what we're doing is we're minting each week more tokens and then putting them up for auction. Right. And so Axion can mint the tokens. We're the only ones that can. And then we put them out for sale. And as you put them out for sale, people buy in with Ethereum because it's an Ethereum based token. They buy in with the Ethereum, and all of the Ethereum that they put in gives them a portion of what's in the auction. And so if there's 1 billion tokens in the auction and they put in 10% of what ends up in the auction, they get 10% of the tokens that were in the auction. And so it allows people to kind of dynamically set the price with a few controls in there. All of that Ethereum, though, doesn't just go straight to Axion. Axion has a small percentage to maintain our company. The rest of it is distributed back to stakeholders. And so the way it works for venture capital auctions, which are coming in Q1, these venture capital auctions will take 5% of all that Ethereum, and then it goes to Axion Foundation. 10% of it goes directly back to the person that just auctioned. And so if I auction 1 Ethereum worth, I get 0.1 Ethereum worth of Bitcoin, right? And so I'm instantly going to get Bitcoin back. I'm then staked automatically for 120 days. So once the auction's over, the minimum stake period is 120 days. Over those next 120 days, there's going to be at least 34 more auctions. Every single time there's another auction, every staker gets that other 85% distributed evenly among all the stakers for how much shares they have. And so what it does, that's a lot of words. Probably the easiest way to think of it is, imagine you were to go to a bank and you tell the bank that I want a 15-year CD. And instead of telling you that you can have all your money in 15 years, they tell you that the interest rate that they're making in the background, which is what all banks do with your money, that's how they pay interest. They're going to twice a week give you your portion of it. So you don't have to wait the 15 years. Instead of the banks holding on to your money and making as much money as they can until they have to pay you back, right? It's a bit of a gambling game how the banking system works. Here, Axion, instead of holding on to that money for what's put in the auction, we give it back. It's actually instantaneous. And so every single time someone puts money into the auction, if you're staked, you can watch on your staking platform on Axion.network and see your Bitcoin come in as it's paid off to the auction.
So there's a little bit more liquidity in there to where you can have access to the money and pull it out, regardless if you've staked it for so long.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, Axion, how long has Axion been around?
Yeah, we just launched in November. And so Axion's only been around for a few months. Very new. Like all cryptocurrencies, things move very quickly. And so our venture capital auction is launching in March. Right now, we do daily auctions that allow, it's the same basic function, but we distribute Axion back to the stakers. What we're doing is really allowing people to accumulate as much Axion as possible until venture auctions. Once venture auctions launch, that's going to be our primary product, where every single person that's staked is going to be getting twice a week lots of Bitcoin.
Wow. That certainly sounds great. Well, talk to me how you came about with this model compared to just what's out there with the other cryptocurrencies.
Yeah, so one of the things I love about Axion, and you said it earlier in your statement, that's our mission statement. We put a lot of effort into that. It's that we are an ethical finance, community-driven cryptocurrency, right? And so really, the majority of these ideas have come from the community. I'm one of them. The reason I'm now the chief strategy and marketing officer is because I was an investor, and then I worked through the mathematics and the economics to make some of this viable. Other members who are also just initial investors have come up with things along we've got a lot of options. We've got the VCA, we've got upgrade stakes. There's a lot of different tools that allow you to manage your money. So really, Axion started off as a traditional CD token, just like all the other CD tokens, where we would provide 8% interest and then try to manage inflation over time. But over the course of the last 4 months, through a tremendous amount of community involvement, onboarding members from the community that have very specific skill sets, that's kind of how we've gotten to the place we are now, where we have a really dynamic product that in the long term controls inflation while still minting tokens. So it's a pretty unique setup.
Yeah, it seems like a really tight community and a very involved community as well. What the future plans? Obviously, you talked about the VCA, which is still a future plan, but where do you see Axion in, say, that 15.2 years that you can stake your money?
Yeah, I currently don't have a crystal ball, so 15 years is an eternity from now. What I can tell you is in the last 4 months, we've developed. VCA is gone through a tremendous amount of testing. It's currently the community itself is testing it right now. It's one of the unique things that I think is going to keep Axion really relevant and really a major global company. Because what we do is we listen to the community. Every single one of these auction things that I've told you about, any one of these events that we've had, we have a community-based voting system, and the community votes and promotes what we want to do overall. And so what we have is this really dynamic way of making sure that large investors and small investors all get say in what happens with Axion. So where it will be in 15 years, it's hard to tell. So 4 months in, we've really generated some brand new deflationary economics on an inflationary token. What I think you're going to see is that as VCA launch, which is right around the corner, once that hits and starts running along, the next big moves for Axion is to help teach the rest of the world what cryptocurrency is. I'm in charge of our marketing. The primary function of our marketing, 80+%, is to teach people who have never been in cryptocurrency how to be involved. And so what you'll see on Axion.network is some very clear explainer videos, a lot of good graphics, just to kind of walk you through all of these complex economics and to make it simpler for you to use. And honestly, I think that's the key to adoption. And as we start to achieve adoption as a cryptocurrency, we're going to achieve more community members. And as we get more community members, bringing people with all these different skill sets, who knows what's next? But I can tell you that we're going to always stick to that ethos of an ethical finance, community-driven cryptocurrency.
So what would you say to people? This is a primarily business audience. There's a lot of business owners here, professionals, local business owners, entrepreneurs. What would you say to these people that might not have invested in cryptocurrency so far? Why would you advise them to, look at Axion as opposed to any of the other ones out there?
Screen, but as long as you still hear me, we're good. So what I would say is that one, cryptocurrency is a $1.4 trillion market. You look at the global pool of money that's around 38 trillion. 1.4 trillion is in the cryptocurrency market. Cryptocurrency is not going away. It's not fake. It's a very real and very much on the cutting edge of what finance will be in the future. My personal advice, and this is part of the ethos for being ethical finance, is that cryptocurrency is still volatile. For sure, cryptocurrency is volatile. And so it's not something that I would put my entire portfolio into. It's not something I'd put my entire 401k. In my mind, this belongs as one of the smaller parts of your investment portfolio. What I generally tend to advise people is that if you have a large portfolio investment, maybe a 5 to 7% of it can be in something like a cryptocurrency. I also encourage people that diversification is critical. Everybody knows that. Anybody that works in the finance world and business world knows diversification is crucial. What Axion does is it allows for that without having to pay a ton of fees and then really be stuck with trying to guess which currencies. One of the things that Axion is going to do and is already doing is we're able to purchase the Axion, let you stake that, and basically what that does is it gets you a foot of entry into the market. Right now, it's producing wrapped Bitcoin, but we have functionality built in across the board to start doing things. If the community votes for it, to doing distributed types of currency. So instead of getting just the Bitcoin into your wallet every single week, you can get Bitcoin, you can get any sort of other cryptocurrency, because the functions of our contract basically give you the entryway into cryptocurrency. And so that's kind of where we're positioning ourselves, is that, buy a coin that will help stabilize that road that's very volatile within the crypto world. And at the same time, allow you to get a piece of the rest of the diversified crypto market. Because again, it's 1.4 trillion, and even when it whipsaws up and down, cryptocurrency it can't go away. It's decentralized, and so I would definitely advise everybody to have a portion of their portfolio in cryptocurrency. And for me, I think Axion is a really good bet, just because it allows you diversification and a much more stable metric. I think there's not a single cryptocurrency that exists that has more than 20% of supply at 15 years. That's unheard of in the space. And the reason it's happening here is because people are driving the project, and then they see the diversification potential.
They're asking for it. Great.
Yeah.
So talk to me then about the process. If somebody goes to the Axion website, what is the process for them to go through in order to invest?
Yeah. So, one of the biggest barriers of cryptocurrency right now, less than 84% of the world even has a wallet. And then if you look at the United States, of the United States, half of the wallets, the median wallet value is under $360. So right now there's just very little adoption, right? So the 1.4 trillion is very concentrated. The primary reason for that is education. It's really a complex situation to get into cryptocurrency. The way I kind of draw an analogy here is that, in the early to mid 80s, there was computers, right? Computers existed. They've been around for a while, but they came with several engineers, and they were very complex to build. What Apple did that made Apple big was they made it simple to use. So they built a UI, they made it easy, and they made it an interface that a normal human could use. What I think Axion is doing is quite the same thing. So when you come on Axion.network, what you're going to see is a very clear layout of what the economics look like. We've got several buttons that click you over to bring you to the I've never touched crypto before page. And then in that page, we've got several different media options. If you're the kind of human that likes to watch videos, right, to kind of learn how to build a wallet, we've got videos. If you want to watch read instructional, just a manual, we've got that as well. And so what our target is to allow someone who's never been in crypto. Right now, I'll be honest, it took me and some of my friends 2 or 3 days to get everything set up to try to start buying cryptocurrency. When you come on to Axion.network, then what you're going to see is about under 5 to 4.5 minutes worth of videos that'll walk you through step by step how to set up your wallet, how to purchase the coin, and how to interact with the contract. Over time, we have a stated goal within the community that as fast as we can, we want to get that number under 30 seconds to make it something that you actually can just go on and buy. But right now, I would caution everyone, if you just start typing in cryptocurrency and you try to find the best way to buy, you're going to get a headache. I think Axion.network, though, can help you with some of that headache and make it so that it's a simple walkthrough process of under 5 minutes. We're trying to get it down below 7 steps, so that each one of those steps you can slowly progress forward. And then in time, as we build and as we grow as a company, we're going to do better.
Well, of course, once you do it once, you'll have a good idea of how to do it again. But it does come down to that education of that one single process. But what does the education look like to get more adoption from people that want to invest in crypto?
Yeah, so what it looks like to me is, one, awareness, right? So there's a little bit of there's a lot of lack of awareness of what crypto is. One of the most common feedbacks I get is, when I transitioned my career from my 14-year aerospace career to now 100% of my pay is in cryptocurrency, many of my family members were concerned. They said, okay, but can you get real money with it? And I think that the perception is that it's not real. And honestly, it's just as real as any other commodity that you've purchased. It's not quite a currency yet, but to make it a currency, what you need to do is make it accessible. Right now, everybody knows how to use a dollar bill. Everybody knows how to use a euro. And so what our primary focus is, once VCA is launched, which is coming in March, as VCA is moving along, and then we've got our economics all lined up, then the next step is to continue to onboard people to how to buy the cryptocurrency. The second part of this is how do you use the cryptocurrency? And so right now we're partnering with a company called Connect Financial. We're going to partner with several other debit and credit card companies that will allow you to take your cryptocurrency and do several things with it. Either use it as a backing for a debit card, use it as a verification for credit availability for a credit card. And ultimately, the cryptocurrency world is going to get to where using cryptocurrency at, pay locations is going to be viable. You're already starting to see some of that. You saw Tesla buying $1.5 billion in Bitcoin, and then people, launching a program to allow people to buy their Teslas in Bitcoin. So some of this is just going to take time. It's going to take world adoption. But for me, for where I believe Axion sits in this whole community, is that we are going to make it friendly and easy to engage in a token that you can stake long term without having to have major concerns about price volatility. Continue to diversify your portfolio without having to constantly interact on the internet with a contract over and over again, and partner with the companies that are going to allow you to spend that money without having to, again, go through several different transactions just to get it back to fiat.
Yeah, it's still not quite there.
No.
How long do you think it's going to take before it is, unilaterally adopted throughout the world?
Ooh, that's a tough one. One thing I've seen in the cryptocurrency world is that it goes through these very, very aggressive cycles of adoption, right? And you're seeing some of that right now. There's all of a sudden you've got major corporations buying billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin. It's gonna move in these very large swings. It's gonna sit for a while and then jump, and then it's gonna sit for a while and then jump. What I see with a company like Axion is that we should be some of the first ones that will be a smaller token that can work through bear markets and continue to survive to the next bull, so that people can start to feel over the course of that 4, 8, 12-year cycles that they still have a cryptocurrency that they can depend on to continue to build their portfolio. And I think as we prove that out as a company, that buying Axion and staking it max is going to allow you long-term benefit and a long-term foot in the market. Because again, we can control the supply through this active burn mechanism and an increased supply mechanism. We can adopt the supply to meet the demand, right? Which allows us to help survive in these bear markets. So, if I had to guess, which is not my style, I would say that it'll take several market cycles, whatever those cycles look like, for the rest of humanity to start to build a little more confidence in cryptocurrency. And so I think things like Axion are the good first step into that direction.
Well, it's definitely a very exciting time in the world. It's an exciting time for Axion. I know we've covered a little bit here. If there's anything else that you would want to include here, what might that be, Brian?
Yeah, I came from just a very, very rigid tech world of aerospace engineering, right? My background is all in those mathematics. And so for me, the understanding the token on the math side was simple. But really, it took me personally, almost a decade to really understand that crypto can last. And so what I want people to be encouraged to do is when you're thinking about engaging in the cryptocurrency market, one, it's here to stay, right? It's going to continue to grow over time in fits and spurts. I encourage you to really dig into the fundamentals, do a little extra homework, and make sure that every single time you're looking at buying a cryptocurrency, they have a platform that can last, right? And ones that show you, hey, we do have this long-term staking. Read into the fine print, read into what it looks like and how much the community adopts it. And I think that's really where Axion is going to play an important role, is that right now we're at 20%. I expect that number to go up above 35% over the course of the next year, staked out for the next 15 years, which again means that people are staking a 4-year cycle commodity out 15 years. And I think that should show you something.
Yeah, definitely. A lot more stability in the currency, hopefully.
Yeah.
All right. Well, great stuff. So if people want to learn more about Axion, where do they go?
Yeah, so the best place you can go is axion.network. That's going to bring you right to the homepage. We've got knowledge-based sites. We have other sites. And if you want to contact me directly, so it's Bryan Newbrite. Within the Axion community, I'm known as Punky. And pretty soon what you're going to start seeing is the launch of my podcast called Punkynomics Podcast. And so what I'm going to be doing is working every single week to just teach first the Axion community and then the rest of the crypto community what long-term staking and deflationary economics can do really for the world finance system. So yeah, axion.network. And then, as you're checking it out, type in the word Punkynomics, because you're going to see a lot of really, really good boiled down simple information so you can understand a little more about cryptocurrency.
Very good. Well, I appreciate you being here with me today, Bryan. There's definitely a lot of knowledge there for me. Certainly a lot more that I have to learn. So I need to go to Punkynomics myself and learn a little bit more about the crypto. But like we've been talking about, it is going to get adopted. It is a currency that's here to stay. So it's definitely something to look into. Again, Bryan Newbrite, thank you very much for being my guest on the Trust Factor Radio today.
Thanks, Neil. Really appreciate it.
And to our listening audience, if you like what you hear, hit that like button and share, and we'll see you next time on the show.
Cheers.
You've been listening to the Trust Factor Radio with Neil Howe. To learn about the resources mentioned in the show and to listen to past episodes, go to thetrustfactorradio.com. To get a copy of the book, The Trust Factor, go to thetrustfactorbook.com. If you are ready to act now and build your authority, credibility, and trust, schedule a consultation with Neil at theauthorityarchitect.com.